and welcome to this week's edition of WCS Coaches Preview Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Qualls, and with us today is Coach Donnie Webb of Franklin High School and Coach Rector of Centennial High School for tonight's annual Battle of Franklin. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing well.
Thank you so much for being in here. Let's start right into the Battle of Franklin. This is a long-standing rivalry between two schools, as you said, as we talked about before. The middle schools, they go together, they break off, they go to school, so there's a natural rivalry between the students there. What does this game tonight mean to you, Coach Webb?
In the years that I've been in Williamson County and been at Franklin High School, it's a little different because it wasn't, the first game of the year. But from the kids' perspective, it's huge. And you already spoke on it. They go to school together in middle school. Lots of them, not all of them, but lots of them go together, and they know each other. And especially in today's age, they all know each other because they're on them phones back and forth to each other. And so it's really huge for the students, for the main part. But even so for our football team, they get excited because it is Centennial and just to be in the first game this year.
Well, fortunately, so far, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that the social media has been extremely clean on your game now. The other rival game happening tonight, the Page-Fairview game, has not been so much. So far it's been good and good-natured and well. Coach Rector, same to you, same question to you.
Well, I think that from my perspective, being at Centennial and elsewhere in Williamson County over the last basically 12, 13 years, just the fact that it's one more added rivalry because for I don't remember what it was, 16 or 17 years, it really wasn't a rivalry. And so now, just the fact that we can make it a competitive game, hopefully anyway, year in and year out, I think that tends to be great for both schools. I think it tends to be great for the community. The entire city of Franklin can now say, hey, this is something that we can, enjoy on a Friday night when it happens. And it's happened a lot as of late, so we expect the attitude and the energy to pick up right where we left off from last year.
Well, obviously, you won't have to get your players too pumped up. I mean, they're going to come out ready to go. They're going to be frothing at the mouth, ready to go out there and get going for real. And with that brings some added problems. You're going to have to work through some issues, the offsides, the penalties, that come early in the year. But tonight's game brings on a special or a very unique situation. You've got the last three games, including tonight's game, will have been against each other. And the last game of the regular season last year when you were competing in the same region, Franklin won by a margin of 3 points. Then you turn around and go into playoffs, which is unfortunate that one of you have to eliminate each other in the playoffs. You guys won that one by 5 points. So 8 points separates tonight's game, the rubber match. So what does that bring not only to you, but what about the student bodies? I know the student bodies also as well are going to be this is one of the highest attended games in the county all year long.
Well, honestly, I from what Coach Webb was saying, just the fact that it's a first game is really good because, you usually get the higher attendance on the first game. And so when him and I talked in the off season, it really, maybe we didn't want to do this necessarily first game, but I think it's going to end up being great because A, we're not in the same region as you mentioned anymore, and B, we can go ahead and get that packed house. Right now, we're hoping, both of us, I'm sure, that it's not as sloppy as the typical first game may be. But look, there's a lot of jitters out there. There's a lot of people in the crowd. There's a lot of stuff riding on this, pride mostly. And that matters. That matters a lot to both teams and to both communities. So doing this first game of the year, maybe it's not what you think about on paper, but ultimately I think it works better for both teams. I know it does for us anyway.
And Coach Webb, you have an additional unique situation with your wife being the principal of Centennial. So is there anything when you're going home at night, you're like, look, what are they doing over there student body-wise? What's going on? I know that y'all don't talk about that. I'm giving you a hard time. But at the same time, you both are extremely competitive people.
I'm just trying to get his huddle count. Seriously, as a coach, there's certain games that are, you talk about the excitement, there's certain games when you walk in the locker room and, you prepare them throughout the week. It doesn't happen, the rah-rah that Friday night, but there's certain ones that are freebies. And if you have to say something to get up to play in a game like this, then there's a problem that's
you probably won't be in the locker room.
Correct. But it's, Brian talking about being the first game, I wish it would have been flipped the other way because I do think it's going to be a great crowd tonight, and it will be every other year too as well. But just the fact from Franklin's standpoint, it obviously they got to go on and play in the playoffs, and it is 3 straight times that Franklin's played Centennial. Obviously they got to move on and play some other folks.
And what people may not know is how much that we rely upon the gates of those. And this being one of the largest games of the year, we are self-sustaining programs. Each one of you, have to run your programs on a bare bones budget based on people attending the games. And tonight, it gives an opportunity. You're both 0-0, first game of the year, and it's for bragging rights. It's not going to necessarily hurt either one of you region-wise, which is a good thing. I hate the fact that we've all split off, but it is a good thing for bragging rights. So, it makes for a very interesting storyline. So, speaking of the new regional alignments, we'll start with you first, Coach Webb. Franklin is entering in that Super 32 Region 3 6A football. All 32 teams are automatically in. Coach Rector doesn't like that because Coach Rector is going to have to earn his way in. But, there's pros and cons to being in both. Mount Juliet in that group, 5-6 last year. Obviously, you guys were 8-3. McGavick, 9-3, made playoffs, had a good run there last year. Lebanon did not win a game. They were 0-10. Overton 6-5 in the playoffs last year. Wilson Central 4-6, and Antioch 3-7. What are your perspectives on this new region coming in? Take yourself out of the picture. Who's the best team in that group?
Well, if I'm taking us out of the picture immediately right off the bat, I'm just going to say Ravenwood.
I left out Ravenwood. I apologize. You're correct.
And it's easy to do right now with 3 different districts or alignments with our WCS conference being all split up. But I immediately Ravenwood, McGavick, and Overton of the Metro. We're always going to have good athletes. They're going to be coached well, and then Mount Juliet. All the talk is they're this big, huge team, and they're getting physical. But that's so far down. But since you're asking about the region as a whole, they would be the next one that I would talk about. That I think it's going to be a good football team in that group.
I think so too. It's very interesting, the region, the mashup there. Unfortunately, like you said, we only have 2 WCS teams in each of the regions now between the big 6 schools, and it's unfortunate for us, gate-wise, travel-wise, all that that we had last year. Moving over into Region 7 5A, Centennial drops down. They're actually on the top of the scale on the 5A group. Dixon, 2-8 last year. Clarksville Northeast also 2-8. West Creek 4-6 last year. Clarksville was 5-6 with a playoff appearance. Brentwood 2-4. Rossview 8-4, second round, lost to Whitehaven 14-7. I think that was a kind of a surprise issue for those guys last year. Had a good run. Henry County 10-3, quarters lost in the quarters to Ridgeway, and of course you guys were 10-3. I think I got all the teams there if I'm not mistaken. Take yourself out of the picture. I know automatically who's fixing to come to mind. Yep. Henry County, always been a staple in that group, but go ahead and tell us about what you think in that region.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Counts, the senior Coach Counts, is resigned, but his son takes over, and I'm sure they'll just roll right along with what they've been doing. So Henry County's at the top of that list. Rossview and Coach Lambert do an awesome job, and obviously we can't forget Brentwood and Coach Crawford being back there. So Brentwood will certainly be a force to be reckoned with. The 5A district right there with those 2 or 3 teams, including us, I think is a really, really good district. The Clarksville teams that are remaining in that pool are all improving, I feel like. Dixon County, they've always been, a solid program. They've been down as of late, but obviously this could be a year for them to rebound. So there's a lot of unknown, but obviously you have the big names like Henry County probably leading the list at the top there.
Well, it poses a completely new dynamic for both of you. We've still got, unfortunately, you can't get all the big 6 games on your schedule. So that limits us gate-wise, and especially for transportation purposes. How nice is it to go just across the county to do what you got to do? Now your average, your bus ride to Henry County will take
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours
right?
at
Is
best.
That about what it will be?
Pretty close.
And,
yes, sir.
Okay. Your furthest game, Mount Juliet, will take. How long will it take to get to Mount Juliet?
I'd put it at probably an hour and a half.
So I think personally, this is my opinion, that he may have better participation from the away teams versus what you do. Clarksville, Montgomery County schools probably don't travel as well. So, that poses so many dynamics and different challenges for us, for each of you in your programs.
Well, I agree. And we had 2 Clarksville teams on the schedule last year, and we had no idea that we'd be, in a Clarksville district. Those gates for the visiting teams were not good. They were not good at all. And so we know what we're staring down now. So I guess the good news is we have 2 Clarksville teams at home, and then we have 2 away. So we were able to balance that out. pretty much most of the coaches in Williamson County were able to do a decent job of having, a couple of, at least one or two in-county, what you might call rivalry games at home each year so that they can balance their gate out. And that's the real juggling act that we have to do is worry about all that. This is not the SEC where we could play, a Clarksville team and the thing is still packed.
Right.
That's just not how it works. And so we're working on that. And so our student bodies everywhere inside our county, our student bodies and their participation are going to matter more than ever.
Well, they are, and I agree. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm a little biased, but I really, really think from A to Z all the way that our student bodies at every one of our WCS schools are second to none.
I agree.
I mean,
without
they each
a
have
doubt.
their themes, they're each organized.
No
You've got
question.
CU, you've got the Rebellion. I mean, you've both had tailgating parties where people where they have showed up and showed what they're going to do. They're practicing, and that's going to show up tonight. I mean, it's going to be absolutely electric for you guys. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. What an environment that's going to be. Looking at Coach Rector, looking at your non-region schedule for the year, you do have Independence in there with Coach Blade. Very interesting matchup. We won't dwell on that too much, but that's a very interesting matchup. And you turn around after playing non-region foe in the Battle of Franklin game, you turn around and then you play Indy. So I mean, you kind of come out of the bat pretty strong with two really stout games.
Absolutely, and a lot of that is by design. Again, the Independence game is away, and so next year when we're playing at Franklin, then Indy will come home to us, and we get that early season well-attended gate. And so, do I want two really tough opponents right off the bat, boom, boom, in a row? No, but we got to plan it to where we can get our gate situated and get those non-region rivalry things going early, so that it brings that excitement to things.
And
We
then,
had to do it with Ravenwood because that's how we looked at it. We had Ravenwood at home, so we went and pulled Riverdale when we had to go pull one from Rutherford County, and so we had to make sure we had Ravenwood opposite Centennial.
and looking at your schedule, obviously opening up with Centennial, and then you turn around and play Riverdale at home. Now, that's a pretty tall task in itself too, because the Rutherford County football teams obviously are always on the map. Blackman, Oakland, Riverdale. That'll be a great test for you guys. I mean, give us a little info on that real quick.
I don't know, crazy man. No, we're in the playoffs.
Okay. Well,
no,
that's,
seriously, no.
That's a good strategy to think about.
That's right.
That's a good strategy to think about.
Your team better.
And the bottom line is you got to play good people to get better. The most frustrating thing in practice with a football team that is, if you don't have the utopia of a college situation where you've got all, the defense is just as good as the offense and everybody's flipping, it's your competition. So you better play some competition to find out where you are and what you're going to have the opportunity to become.
That's a little different strategy than probably you would think about. You guys have to play your way in, and I'm not discrediting the fact that's just the way the system's set up. And I think that's a great strategy. Let's get some tough teams in here, see where we are early, learn, grow. To round off your non-district schedule or non-region schedule, you play Brentwood. You've guys got Ravenwood. So that's not right there is a very tall task for both. That'll be a great gate, great participation in that. Tough game for both. And your schedules are set. Look forward to seeing how this plays out for both of you on that. When we come back from break, we're going to look at both their teams, their starters, their spotlights, their coaching staff. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Too many of Tennessee's students drop out of high school. If you ask them why, you'll probably hear they just can't keep up because they don't have the reading skills. Success in school is based on success in reading, and learning to read starts with hearing words. With young children, storybook reading, particularly family storybook reading, plays a special and important role.
Had a great, what's the last word?
Mom.
Good.
Have fun with reading. Read the directions on the box and bake a cake together. Create a scrapbook, write a family cookbook, or a newsletter.
That looks like you.
What about the triangle?
A triangle face.
Work with your child to cut coupons and make a grocery list. Write thank you notes to grandparents. Read a book about different occupations. Then ask your child what they would like to be when they grow up.
You could be, maybe. What about an eye doctor, just like your granddaddy?
my eye doctor is much more. He works with some glasses.
He does work with some glasses.
Don't underestimate the impact that reading can have on your child's future. Choose success. Choose reading. This Choose Success moment has been brought to you by the Middle Tennessee P16 Council. For more information about children and reading, contact your local school system.
Welcome back to WCS Coaches Preview Show. Tonight, Battle of Franklin. Franklin travels to Centennial. All right, guys, let me ask a quick question before we get into personnel. Excluding each of you, who's the most intriguing team, best team, fill in the blank in the WCS Sports Conference? Start with you, Coach Webb.
Well, after scrimmaging, we scrimmaged Independence. They're intriguing to me, to use the word you use, to have a shot to win a lot of games, number one, and then be a force in their district and state playoffs.
Well, I would agree with Coach Webb, but I guess I'll put a plug in there for, Ravenwood. Seeing them on tape, and they have what looks to be a very stout defense, very, very good running game, a ton of numbers. And so, I think Coach Hester and his crew can make, again, they can make a lot of noise.
All right, so that gives us a good segue into it. Let's talk about preseason. What has happened up to this point? Who have we played? Who right now, personnel-wise, is looking to be stepping up for you? Right now, Franklin has lost 29 seniors. That's a very large class. On top of that, a lot of those kids are a centralized part for you. Joe Critchlow being the quarterback, we all know that name. It's a household name in the WCS. He's a very efficient quarterback. Fatoni in the kicking game, going to Missouri. So preseason-wise, who have you played, and what are some things that stood out to you?
Preseason, we scrimmaged Blackman, Summit, and Independence. Right off the bat, early what stood out to me is talking about all those seniors. As I started looking and starting the numbers of, we have receivers that are on the field right now, 5 catches, and you think about all the completions that Joe had, and we've got 5 guys that caught a ball from him last year that are still on the roster, and I didn't really realize it until we were getting into camp. We started looking at personnel, where we're going to put people, and that type of thing. Obviously, I probably didn't do too good of a job and some of it was because of, especially down the stretch, our last 4 games, the competition, all of them, they were wild games. That a lot of those kids didn't get playing time. But, it's their turn now, and you want me to talk about the players going into that?
Well,
right
we'll
now?
get that in just a second. I'm going to ask you the same
yes,
question.
Sir, go right ahead.
Deion Sanders,
Right.
Emmanuel Hall. I mean, going to Missouri, Deion going to Furman. Deion being such a vocal leader for you, being a great guy behind the scenes. And I'm just talking about those 2 guys in particular. I know that you lost 14 seniors, and I'm sure there was plenty more behind the scenes that helped you keep that nucleus together. So same question to you. Tell us about some of the guys that you lost, what you've been doing preseason-wise, and who's kind of stepped up for you.
Right. Well, from the roster last year, big names are Bryce Whitman, Deion Sanders, Emmanuel Hall. Those were really Trent McDermott, who led us in interceptions last year at safety position. Those are 4 that immediately come to mind that were really good players for us. Malcolm Miles, our starting center. Both our quarterbacks, Connor Rietfeld and Owen Roth, and Josh Colson, another receiver. So, our skill areas were actually hit pretty good in terms of with graduation. Tate Simpson at tight end. We feel like we have, some good things coming back, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But in the preseason, we were able to test that by playing Smyrna. We then went against Siegel, and then we had a good scrimmage against Father Ryan. So we felt like we played good competition in the preseason, much like Coach Webb. There were some things that maybe I wasn't satisfied with early on, some of our receivers and quarterback play, but that really did improve as the preseason went along. So really, like Coach Webb, we just need experience in some of those key positions, especially on the perimeters and skill-wise, to be able to get as good as we need to be.
So we've gone through preseason. We've each played 3 teams. We've gone through the mini camps, the practices, the heat, everything leading up until tonight. Now, who's going to take the field on the offensive side of the ball for us, Coach? Who are some spotlight players offensively for you guys? Kind of take us through that real quick on the offensive side.
Offensively, we're going to be led at our quarterback position, Kyle Evans. We'll actually play 2 of them tonight, Evans and Patterson. We've done it all through the whole preseason. We think both of them are. We feel like what we were doing is fitting to their skill set, and Lanham Craddock, who got some carries last year because we had the 2 senior running backs last year, but Lanham played more defense last year, but he's moved to the running back position. And then our offensive line, we do have 2 guys that played a lot down the stretch. Caden Williams, our left offensive tackle, we think can be a really good football player. And we feel like, with him, and we have a sophomore offensive lineman. He's just young. If he continues to get better, he could actually be a prospect in a couple of years, because his name is Max Ray. He's just got to get stronger. But we feel like they can anchor and give us an opportunity to move the football.
Coach, same to you, offensive side of the ball.
Sure. On offense, our strength early on and maybe all year, I hope all year, is with our offensive line. We've got 4 out of 5 returning. And 1 was out with an injury, so Junior was placed in there during every preseason game, and he really did well. So we're talking about Dylan Phillips, Eli Katina, Blake Mosley, Nathan Wilkinson, and then we also have Nolan Daniel that stepped up as a junior. Hayes Morrow will likely lock down the center position. Running back wise, we have Mondu Sawyers, who got some carries last year but dealt with a high ankle sprain. But he's really an experienced back. He just didn't get a ton of experience last year. But Mondu sees it well and does a good job. There's Tyrell Dotson, who is a spot back for us more than anything else, and then a young talented sophomore by the name of John Carter. If we can get some receivers going in the right direction, and the quarterback, Blake Lovell and Tristan Pisacani, and the receivers, Devious Crispin, Austin Waddell, and Centurion DeRoe, if we can all get them a little bit more on the same sheet of music with every single game, we can end up being pretty good on offense. We feel like, anyway.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, you kind of ran a hybrid of a 2 quarterback offense last year. Is that
correct? Got it. That's correct.
Is that going to be kind of following suit this year as well?
Well, we think that Blake will probably take a majority of the snaps, but, Tristan has made some plays. I mean, he had some really nice plays in the scrimmage last week versus Father Ryan, so he's not going to sit the bench. Right. There's no doubt about that. And Coach knows more than anybody. If you relying on that one quarterback is great, but as soon as there is an ankle sprain, you're only as good as your backup quarterback. And we feel good about our 2 quarterbacks.
Well, I find that interesting because you've been, coming from a 1 quarterback system, 2 quarterback system, you're almost kind of flip-flop. Now you're going to a 2 quarterback. Not that you're not going to use 2, but you've already kind of got a guy set to start. So that's interesting. Tyrell Dotson as a spot back. Do you consider him as a spot back or somebody that you're very keyed on when he steps out there?
Oh, no, he's saying exactly right. I mean, because it's even last year, there was times when I thought they might going to be a little bit more 2-back versus us. Right. And Tyrell's over there making havoc on us defensively, and they stayed with the 1-back with Dion. So, no, it's.
But he has to keep you honest when he steps on the field. I mean, that's a definite when he steps out.
Really good player, obviously.
So we're going to flip the switch and go to defense now, and that brings us to, we're going to let you start. Okay. Tyrell Dotson, ranked 10th inside linebacker in the country right now in several things that I've seen, committed to Texas A&M. Real briefly, if you don't mind, tell us a little quick why he selected A&M, how that process went down.
Well, we took him down there, myself and Coach Copley, in June. It was just the only time we could make it down there. It's a long trip, so we went ahead and just went down there just so he could see what it was like.
Was that his first visit that he had been anywhere?
No, he had been to a couple other places just closer, like Western Kentucky, and I think he went over to Middle one day and things of that nature. We went to Tennessee during their spring practice. So, he'd seen some mid-majors. He'd seen, kind of the top SEC. And then, when we went down to Texas A&M, just his relationship with Coach Chavis, the defensive coordinator, I think won that out. And, at the end of the day, he said he wanted to commit. We talked about it for a long time. And as long as we said, hey, if you're going to commit and somebody else calls and offers, you turn them down, I'm good with it. And he's done that several times.
And a lot of people that don't know him, I don't think we'll be going through the Tyrell Dotson sweepstakes like we were last year with the Van Jefferson sweepstakes, where we decided to change our mind. Everybody in the country came in. I think Tyrell, from what I have learned and gotten to know him, I think that's a pretty solid commitment. Do you feel the same about that?
Absolutely. There won't be any sweepstakes that I can see in the near future.
Well, so let's talk about defense. what do we expect to see on defense?
Well, besides Tyrell, I mean, we really feel like we have some pretty good defensive players to really good. You know, Clay Carter started all year last year for us at inside linebacker. Chandler Stump, outside linebacker, same way. Tony Wall was a great JV player for us last year, and we feel like we're going to up our game with him as an outside linebacker. Then you have Dylan Phillips. You've got Gray Drury. You've got Rayshawn McLemore as a defensive end. Those will be our primary defensive linemen, along with some other rotators. And then in the secondary, you have Peyton Pisacani, who I feel like is one of our best overall football players at a safety. Warren Jones, who played
He also
corner
plays
for us.
quarterback, right?
He also, no, that's his twin brother, Tristan.
brother, okay.
So Peyton is also a wide receiver, our punter, our punt returner, our kicker. Peyton's a little bit of everything for us. But he's our general on defense. And then there's Gentry George at corner and Warren Jones at corner, as well as John Carter at safety.
All right, Coach, Doctor of Defense, what do we expect from the Franklin Rebels?
I hope we're going to see some guys who are going to run around and get to the football. You know, it's been our disappointment in the preseason, and we've been making a lot of moves. You know, some of it I do feel like it's got to get some confidence because we've moved. Some because of injury, some because of what we felt schematic wise. We moved some kids, and then you got to get confidence being somewhere because. The linebacker that Coach talked about that plays beside Dots, and you know when you watch him play, I love watching him play football. I really do. I mean, and he has confidence, and that's what we got with ours. Up front, all four of them are new, except Cameron Vogt is the only returning starter up there, number 52. He played some when we slide to our three-man front. He was the one that came out, and so that's why he didn't get as much playing time. David Bain and Carter Neatfeld are seniors, defensive linemen. They're going to play at the ends. Our linebackers, we've got Mitch Rossi, who we think is a pretty good football player, and he right now is the one that you'll see him on both sides of the ball a lot. He is probably our best football player, you know, of athletic ability and what he can do. In the secondary, we're really pleased with Hunter Rosine. He moved from receiver. He was one of the 5 I told you that actually had some catches, and we moved him to strong safety. And I really think he's going to get better. You know, we could tell from Blackman to Summit, you know, that he made a play against Summit that still pictured in my mind. And Dan was telling him, he said, you know, 2 weeks from now that's going to be Centennial or that's going to be Riverdale, and you're going to pick that ball instead of breaking on it. And he made a good tackle because he's got to get confidence, you know, that type of things. And then we have at safety we have Carter Bowman and Alex Gaka, who's a transfer from Illinois. So you know we're excited about him. We're gonna see what happens and rally to the football is what we need to do.
I think it's going to be fantastic. I think that we'll see some at the end of the year when the dust settles. I think both of you, obviously you're going to be in, but I think both of you are going to be right there in the mix. Centennial right now getting a lot of attention at the 5A level. I think you guys are going to be there. I wish you both the best of luck. Tonight's going to be fantastic. But before we go, real briefly, coaching staff changes. You know, that happens every year. We have turnover. Can you highlight some of your coaches that you have on your staff that may be new?
The new ones, Sean Temple came to us from Rutherford County. Shad Meyer came to us from, he was actually at a middle school. I coached with him at BGA. That's how I met him before. He's coaching offensive line, going to be a great high school football coach. And then Joe Riedfeld came to us from Centennial.
Real quick, Coach, you?
Yep. Well, obviously there's Joe, who coached our defensive backs. Gaston Miller came to us from Oakland, a former Mr. Football and Riverdale standout, and he's doing an awesome job. Jay Emmons from the college level, going to be teaching chemistry at the school and wide receivers this year. He does a great job. Everybody else still the same, so you know we just rock and roll with those guys, and they're having a good time.
Well, man, I can't say thank you enough. Both of you, I enjoy being around both of you. You're fantastic. Tonight's going to be fantastic. I mean, large crowd, great energy. I wish you both the best of luck. 7 o'clock kickoff tonight. Franklin, the Rebellion, traveling to Centennial for the Battle of Franklin. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We'll see you next time.